Good afternoon. Welcome to Conversations on Showing Up for Kids. My name's Tim Markle. I'm director of the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. We're out of the Waysman Center and we cover 14 counties in southern and southwest Wisconsin. But we love people all across the state. And so we think families across the state also have stuff to share with us. So I am really excited today. We are going to talk about preparing your child for success, having a successful school year, heading back to school. We all know that I think the best word to describe, one of the words to describe education over the last 3 years has been unsettled. That it's been up, it's been down, it's been here, it's been there, it's been home, it's been not, it's been masked, it's been not, unsettled. And from what I'm hearing from families is we're still a little bit unsettled. And what I'm hearing from school personnel, they're a little unsettled as well. And so I am thinking we need to have some plans together to be able to succeed and to help our children succeed this year. So I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we will start a discussion. I will go ahead and start with Rose, because unfortunately you came on first, so you're the first one on my screen.
Tag, you're it. Thanks, Tim, for this opportunity, and Sandy and Pearl, looking forward to learning what you guys are doing. My name is Rose. We live in the Southwest Wisconsin territory, and I use that for my travel map. It never lets me down, right? But we have the fortunate to have a transition age kiddo in our family that it seeks an IEP process and so forth. He's 17 and a half, and our oldest. And so not only are we learning how to be a member of a school district that neither my husband nor I were born and raised in, which I think can make a difference as well,
Yeah.
but also how to navigate it with a child that we're seeking a little bit more guidance and understanding. He is joined with two younger sisters, and a lot of times there's actually some benefit to our oldest having the IEP process, because if it works for him, guess what? It's going to work for the other two. So that's us.
Thanks, Rose. Sandy.
Hi, I live just outside of Madison, and it's interesting, Rose, as you were talking, I was thinking, wow, my daughter is a junior, so we're kind of very similar age. My husband and I also did not go through the school district, and yes, she has a younger brother, and if things work for her, they work for him. So you're right, there's a lot of similarities there. Yeah, so that's kind of who we are, and what we're trying to do is just figure out what's best for her and how to make it all work with school and everything like that.
Thanks, Sandy. Pearl.
Yeah, hi, Tim. Thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited to be a part of this. Super excited to learn from Sandy and Rose because my kids are not that old yet. Well, okay, so I have 5. I've got 24-year-old that suffers from diva syndrome, where the world revolves around her. I've got 22-year-old that is my son, that is the know-it-all syndrome because he's the oldest boy and he knows. And then I've got my middle son who's 20, who is the reason that I have gray hair. And I dye it. So he's the one that's typical middle kid, like, go live life to the fullest, consequences mean nothing, let's stress mom out, which I think prepared me for my 2 younger kids that are special needs. So he kind of paved the way of, like, if he still is alive and he got out of my house and I did good with him, then I know I can probably do this stuff with my younger 2. So I've got a 14-year-old nonverbal autistic son, and then I've got a 12-year-old higher functioning Miss Diva know-it-all combo from her siblings that has higher functioning autism, that you put my 2 younger kids together and they are yin and yang. And I'm excited to see how you guys get what works for one of the older ones works for the younger one, because that is not the case for me. What works for the boy never works for the girl. And what works for the girl never works for the boy. So I'm excited to see how this goes.
Well, hopefully, they won't disappoint you. But I just from the work that I've done, I know very well the variability among families. So we all understand that. And just in case I insert myself at some point into this conversation, which hopefully I will not have to, I also have a 24-year-old son on the autism spectrum as well. So what have you guys learned works? What have you guys learned that doesn't work? And what are you maybe putting in place, trying for the first time, or just in general, how do you prepare for your kiddos to head back to school?
So I guess I'll go first. I like to remember that back to school means my vacation starts again. So that way I'm not so stressed and worried, like, how is it going to go for them? I kind of have to make it seem a little more selfish to where I'm like, oh, I'm excited now too, because I get the break, right? They're now having to go to school. And I remind the teachers that if you want pink folders, I will get you pink folders. If you want a massaging chair, I will get you a massaging chair, because I know that my kids are the reason that you probably go to Margarita Mondays after work. I totally understand. So to get my kids prepared, I have found for my kids that open house doesn't work for them. It's a little too chaotic. Um, Kids running around, even the teachers are kind of like, oh my God, So we've done walkthroughs before. We do walkthroughs with the kids a week to 2 weeks before school starts, when staff is getting in there and they're setting up their classrooms. Then they get a feel for maybe where the kids feel comfortable sitting in the classrooms. I have found that that works good for
Earl,
my kids.
how do you set that up? Do you just show up with your kids and take over the school, or how do
Oh,
you?
if only.
I know. So how do you do that?
So I like to plan ahead. I have it set up when we meet with their IEP. So I have IEPs twice a year for each of my kids. I like to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And that is actually something that I learned from Wisconsin Facets, which is the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Wisconsin, that is free for all families to use up until like age 21. So I highly suggest that you reach out to them. So I have one in January to discuss how the first semester went and what we're going to do for second semester. And then I have another one in May or early June, because we are in school until like mid-June. And then we discuss how the second semester went, what we're going to do for summer school, if we're going to go that way, if the kids need ESY services, which are extended school year services. Transition stuff, like with my son turning 14, we were discussing if he was going to start working this summer or if we were going to allow him to kind of just chill and relax again. And then that's when I brought up doing the walkthroughs. Is Matthew was getting ready to transition from middle school to high school. And I'm like, this is a new building, a new layout, new sounds, new lighting, new everything. I need him to get used to it. And we actually started doing that transitioning process in January, because I brought it up that I was concerned then. So they actually started having him go to the high school to walk around during the school day, during the second semester. And then we set up the times for them to go in the fall. Now for my daughter, she was private school until this year. And so I didn't have it in her ISP, which is individualized student plan, because it's different for private school. And her case manager retired this year. So I didn't have a contact person on how can I set this up for my daughter. So I just went straight to the source and I emailed the pupil services director. And I said, hey, my kid's getting ready to transition from private school to public school. We're going to have to redo a whole IEP for her because, the private school stuff's not going to apply anymore. I understand that it's summer. When can we get this going? And so we actually just had her IEP this past week, and we have her walkthrough set up for Friday, and then she goes again next Wednesday. And then she will have somebody walking with her to each of her classes to make sure that she doesn't feel overwhelmed until she gets a layout of the school.
Thank you. That's very informative and helpful to other parents who may want to consider the walkthrough.
And a lot of talking.
Mhm. So thank you. What else is out there? What else can parents, families work on?
Okay, I guess I'm gonna go again. Rose.
Well, I'm going to see if Rose would like to go. So I totally forgot to tell you guys that what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions, and then when I mute myself, that means somebody else has to talk. Okay, I know we're just all starting this up again. It's been a while since any of us have been online, but just that's the way that I hope this will go.
Right, right. And I was just gonna wait and give Grace time to see if Sandy had something pressing that she wanted to jump in there and nail right away. But Pearl, you just took me down memory lane to so many things that been there, done that, and oh yeah, I forgot about that, which I think is a really good thing to point out in this context of right now, if you have one of those beautiful little ones that you're going to reach down and they still want to hold your hand going into school, and you're at that 4K elementary age, and all the trees are in front of you, and you're trying to hold it together to get them happily started out on your school day, realize the statement I just made. Been there, done that, so scared, holding that little hand, walking in, and forgot every part of that because now we're 17 and delivering him to cross-country practice the other day, a grasshopper flew in, and he now is to the point of being able to look in the car and laugh and say, "Good luck with that, Mom," and walk away. So from hand holding to the teenage attitude, trust me, you will get there. Okay. That being said, I concur everything with what Pearl just said, and especially that early communication and that pre-planning thought process. We too used to have 2 IEPs a year, one going into school, one coming out of school, to plan either what would happen during the summer or, hey, don't forget, Buddy will do better if we can access school 2 weeks beforehand, take pictures. Our son is a visual thinker, so we would take pictures to make personalized social stories to talk through the things that perhaps caused anxiety or that could easily be independently done if prepared beforehand, right? So that's what we used to do. And here's the really cool thing, because I get to use the word used to, because Buddy will be a junior this year. And now what it is mom figuring out how to access Google Classrooms for the sports teams that start 3 weeks before school, because his friends have got a hold of him during the summer and said, "We don't care what you're saying yes or no to, you will be part of the cross country team." And he looks at him and says, "Okay." And all of that work comes on to mom, right? What do we need? Where do we go? So our preparations for back to school at the high school years is what I will speak to right now, because I think Pearl did a wonderful job of saying in those elementary years, please pre-communicate, please pre-plan, and please develop. I'm gonna empower you. Develop a strength-based knowledge about your child going into the school and use those terms. Okay. Your child can and will succeed given XYZ. That. Do that. Okay. But the teenage years, depending on their support levels and their levels of wanting the engagement, it wasn't our family telling our son, you need to be involved with XYZ. He actually came and asked us to be part of things, or has this incredible friend support. Now, I don't want you to picture like what it's like for my other 2 daughters, where they know how to interact with friends naturally. All of that naturally occurs. No, buddy, we actually have to take his phone and remind him, you have 15 unanswered Snapchat messages. And he literally would have just said, I miss my friends. I'm a junior. I'm going to miss my friends when I graduate. And we say 15 of them want to talk to you on Snapchat. And this is like within 2 seconds of each other, right? And he'll look at us and go, why? Why are they bothering me? So it's actually teaching a teenager that you need to use your phone, right? So for us, preparation has been more of the technical stuff. It's teaching him how to use his phone to check in with friends, the social things. It's using your phone to check into class and team sport events, because that's where everybody communicates, right? But also it's sitting him down and having a conversation all summer long. You want to have a job. You are this wonderful thing called transition age. There are these wonderful opportunities called youth apprenticeships or career paths or what have you that you can access during the day. So that way you can still access extracurriculars in the afternoon. So ours takes on, I would say, more of a technical behind the scenes, empowering of him to know how to access, dare I say, neurotypical teenage things, but also having that safety net and that allowance for those times when it's not a choice between can or can't or won't. It's a choice between how do I best be successful? And that might mean I need a break for a while. So the only other thing I will say, because I got to bring rural into this, right, is my years of milking cows and having to do time changes with my cows. I totally treat my kids like I used to treat my cows. So 2 weeks before time changes, 2 weeks before major events, I am already either setting clocks ahead when they were young enough to not know how to tell time. I don't understand why we hurry up and teach them some things. But also, that whole, I'm a firm believer when the elementary school teachers used to tell us those first 2 weeks of school, please don't plan any big thing. Your child will be tired and hungry and cranky. So we kind of, even though I have the teenagers majority in our household, we still say you can go to sporting events and so forth, but strict bedtime and strict schedule. And that doesn't start September 1st. That actually starts like August 3rd, 4th. So we ease into those things.
I like that whole idea of preparation and looking ahead. And I love the taking into consideration what our children may not be just automatically picking up, but could learn if we take the time and if they have the proper supports. I love that attitude. It's not can, it's not won't. How can we help it be successful? Yes, we are all waiting for you, Sandy.
Okay, wasn't sure. I bet most of what I have to say is just a reiteration of exactly what Pearl and Rose have said. Just that a lot of it is starting early with that pre-planning, starting to, as soon as you can start communicating with the special ed teacher or the general ed teacher, whoever is going to be kind of the main contact person for your child. We always have tried to do an IEP very early in the school year, maybe a couple weeks in, so that the staff have a little bit of a chance to know her, but then we can start problem solving or discussing what's really going well and how do we do more of that? Are there challenges we need to work through? Starting to talk about, or starting as early as possible to find out when is the bus going to be coming, because then that allows us to work backwards in our mornings and say, okay, so it takes an hour and a half to get her ready. If we know that the bus is coming at 8, we need to start getting up closer and closer to 6:30, like Rose was talking about. So then bedtime needs to be moved to what time so that she gets the adequate sleep. Again, also how do we have weekends where she can get good sleep? How do we have weeks where she gets good sleep and doesn't start out kind of behind in terms of tiredness and stuff? If there's any back to school shopping that needs to be done, how can we include her in making those choices? So you know, do you want, let's see, you need some new clothes. Let's go out. What do you want to pick? What would you feel good wearing the first few days? Do you have something that you really like that is yours at home that you want to wear? Something you feel really comfortable and confident in? For us as parents, it's also learning the technology because our school district uses Canvas and Power School and, you know, a variety of things. And so making sure we as parents have those apps on our phones, that we know how to use them so that we can stay up to date on what's going on, and helping our kids know what that is all like. We had last night, actually, our school had an open house for the kids in special education, or for a chunk of them, because there obviously wasn't everybody there. I know that for a fact, just based on numbers that were there. But it was nice because it was in an evening. We got to meet she helped have a new special ed teacher this year. We got to meet her. They did a little bit of a scavenger hunt with the kids. She's in high school, so it's a big school. And so they did a scavenger hunt of some of the places, because some of the kids are brand new to the school. And so those that were a little bit older got to show off, oh, this is how you get to the gym. This is how you find this place. So it was a nice kind of confidence building for her, in that she could say, I remember this, I know how to do this. And then also it helped kind of scaffold for the younger kids who are just brand new to seeing things. And then I'm waiting to hear back. I keep checking my email because I'm waiting to hear back about when we are going to do the walkthrough of the school, because she always comes before school starts and navigates around from classroom to classroom. She has some vision issues, as well as she uses a wheelchair at school. So how is she going to get from this classroom to that classroom, given that it's a 3-story building and it's a huge building? So, you know, how is she going to get to the elevator, down or up or over, or wherever that stuff is, so that she can kind of visually map that. And then it also helps them say, when we teach her routing, what do we use as, like, oh, this is your cue for knowing where you turn left. It's, you know, you go that hallway or that hallway. So it helps them also pre-plan a little bit. And if they need to, they will consider, is there a little something that's subtle that they could put up in a corner that she could look for? Like in the elementary school, they would put up a little sign. It was a cute little sign that would be in various places. And other kids just thought it was a cute sign. They didn't know that it was, for her, it was a wayfinding method. Yeah, I guess those are kind of the big things, is just sort of, we have to plan way early. We have to start the process earlier than I have to with my other kid, but he hears us talking about this. He knows all this is going on. So I think that increases his confidence and his readiness. Sometimes he comes with us to some of these things. So he has been in the school earlier than he would have otherwise been. So that's some of the ways that having one child with a disability and then having a younger child actually can benefit the second child, or we know who to go to for certain things. Or even if we don't, like I was talking with the assistant director of special ed last week about something. And she said, because my son is an advanced learner in some areas, she's like, oh, you need to talk to the advanced learning coordinator. They're brand new. Here's their contact info. They will have a good answer about this for your son. So we get kind of some insider knowledge, some people that we can contact who can help us find things. And it's just remembering to kind of take advantage of those contacts for our child with a disability, as well as our other children who may not qualify for special education, whether they need it or not. That can vary. So it's that communication, that starting early, that planning as much as you can, but also including your child in the planning in a way that feels good to them, so they have a sense of power and control without being overwhelmed. So kind of like, now that my daughter's 16, we ask, what would you like to be involved in? Would you like to do this, or would you like me to, you know, or what do you think we should do? And so giving her more say, we're hoping will aid in that whole transition process.
Okay. I do want to remember that Pearl has asked that we talk a little bit about how what's working for the older is working for the younger. If we can get to that, that'd be great. But I think one of the questions that's on my mind is, you have all referenced this multiple IEP meetings, and I know that there are families out there that say, well, my school sets an IEP meeting and that's when I'm expected to show up. And so they have maybe one a year in the spring, and then fall comes and things may not be going well, and they feel they might have to wait till spring. How did you arrange to have multiple IEP meetings?
Well, for me, I didn't even know it was a thing that you could have more than one until I reached out to Wisconsin Facets. And they sent me that special ed education and plain language book that is like all special education's mom's like go-to handbook, right? Because it has the law and it's broken down into words that I understand. And I found out that you can call a meeting whenever you want, as many as you need. And if things aren't working out, it's your right to be able to call a meeting. So having that knowledge and sharing that even with other moms, you know, that have kids in my area, because we're super rural. So, you know, almost everybody here knows everybody. And it was felt nice to know that I wasn't the only one, but then I was like, hey, did you know that you can? So I found that, you know, just reaching out to their case manager or to its pupil service director up here, but it's special ed director in bigger cities, reaching out to them, reaching out to the school principal, reaching out to one of their therapists. I mean, you can reach out to however. I always like to do it in email because then I know that they got it or they didn't get it, or I can follow up and see the date of when did I send this, and okay, it's been like 2 weeks, why haven't I heard anything? And I can kind of follow up. But I enjoy having that kind of communication with my team. The other thing that I really like too is my team gives me their cell phone numbers. So I can text them and they can text me. And I have that included in the parental engagement part of my kids' IEPs. So it's not like I'm bugging them at 6 a.m, like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just, you know, there's a time and a place to do it. You have to be responsible. But if my kid's having a bad day and he's headed home, they can shoot me a text and let me know. If he's on the bus and he had a bad morning, I can shoot them a text that morning after he gets on the bus and say, hey, heads up, it's not going good, right? So I like the fact that we can call many IEP meetings. I wish more parents did it, actually. And I'm sure schools would appreciate having more updated information as time, you know, stuff comes up too.
Sandy, I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna jump in unless you want to raise your hand that you got something pressing. Because I'd like to build on what Pearl said. But also give two caveats. One, for many years now, for whatever reason, I've kind of, because we are in a rural area, and like Pearl said, you know everybody. So eventually, if somebody's struggling, they'll say something like, you need to call this Rose person, right? So unofficially kind of a family navigator type person in this world, or whatever. But like Pearl said, love the document, and I see Tim put that document plus the other one in the chat for you folks that are watching this at a later time to access. Please do. And please know that if you have vision problems, or you're like myself and just don't like to read everything or like to highlight things, there are paper copies of that special education in plain language that you can reach out to your school district to try and find for you if you've got that relationship. If not, I'm sure that link leads you to Facets or somewhere else that has some printed, and try and get those for yourself, because they are so empowering, because it does kind of break it down into what the law says, what it means, what school's part of this is, and what you as a parent, your part of it is. So wonderful document. Love that Pearl brought it up. Also, the other little disclaimer is we come from a rural district. Sounds like Pearl comes from a similar one. I believe Sandy brings a light of a larger school district into this conversation. You know, my kids' classes are like graduated of 54, right? Which is what I was born and raised with. My husband, that comes from northern Wisconsin, he's got 400 and some kids in his graduating class. So it's cool to have that for my kids to pull from, okay? That being said, some of what we're saying might fit more your district. So please give yourself the grace. When Pearl says, gosh, I wish it would work for my older kid down to my other kids, give yourself the grace to know we're trying to give you generals to work from, not a template plan to follow, okay? But also in saying that, even in the district, things can change. We too used to have cell phone numbers and personal access to the paras, to the teachers, to the school crossing guard, to everybody, right? Because you do, as a parent of a special needs child, we want to empower everybody to have a good day, not just our child, right? That being said, I always say that's that part of town, which is where our elementary school is located. This part of town where our middle school, high school is, that we hit the brakes hard when we came to this side of town. So if you are in a district that is not as freely giving of personal information, I empower you totally to either have a take-home folder where you have a notebook that you can write, here's how my child's night was, and don't ask for a paragraph from school. They're not going to be able to have the time for that, but perhaps a line or two or some easy document they can even just check. Yes, they ate lunch. No, they didn't eat much. You know, yes, they attended PE. Yes, they hated every minute of it, right? But have written some form, a Google Doc, I don't care, but make sure Gen Ed instructors have access to that as well, because you don't want just a special ed from third day. You want everybody's to know how every aspect had, or at least that, like Sandy said, that they know your child, okay? But when I say it works for my other kids, I'm referring more to those general things. You know, when our fifth grade is really cool because that's the year before they switch over to the middle school. And that becomes, they switch classes all the time in middle school, okay? But fifth grade, they have 3 teachers, their main one, their science one, and their math one. And so they start that process in a slow, contained area. What I loved about that was this huge word called executive functioning skills that we knew our son lacked, right? Imagine my surprise when we gave him every support in the world, and his sister came home from her first week of fifth grade in tears because she had to miss recess because she kept forgetting to grab her colored pencils to go to science class. Okay. And it was like, well, did you teach her she had to grab her colored pencils? Well, no, they're just supposed to know this. Well, Asa, our son didn't know it. Why would she know it if it wasn't pre-taught? So now that our youngest is starting fifth grade and open school is tonight, y'all reminded me to go on the fridge because we made these wonderful things. Again, like what Sandy said, every student has them because we're not singling out one sector of students over the other, but it's just this little laminated bookmark basically that has magnets that will go on the inside of her locker, and it will just have a picture of a book, a pencil, and paper. A reminder that at bare minimum, you need the book of the class you're going to, a writing utensil, and something to capture notes on. And when I take that in, knowing that the fifth grade teachers are the same ones that we came to this conclusion with as my other daughter, I'm guessing that they're going to hurry up between now and the first day and remake those for the rest of the students so we don't have this conversation all over again. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody so far, and the fact is that you've already jumped into next week's discussion on communicating with your school. So thank you so much for ruining that. I'm heartbroken, but I know that we'll have more to talk about. But we do have time. So please, what else is on your mind about preparing for school?
I really quick, just I don't know if Rose said it or if I have or not, so I just wanted to put in that the book that we were talking about with special ed and plain language is free. So I don't want families to feel like, well, I don't have the money to get it. It's free. So I encourage families to get a copy, and it's available in many languages. So highly just recommend that you have it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Absolutely. Yes. I found that that was where I got some of the best information that let me know I could ask for a fall IEP as well as her annual date, which is sometime in the spring. It also let me know that I could say to them, no, my husband and I will both be at all IEP meetings. So we need to schedule it at a time that he is able to make. I know he has a challenging schedule. So we're going to start the process early and I will tell you what we can do. And yes, I do want all of her folks, the speech, OT, PT, all these people present as well, that's really important to me. And no, I'm not okay with excusing people. So, because that's a common thing we get is, oh, that person can't make it now. They tell me the day before. And I'm like, but we scheduled this 6 weeks ago. I'm a little confused as to why all of a sudden they can no longer make it because they have another meeting. Makes my child feel like an afterthought. Like, wait a minute, is this other meeting really that much more important than something that we have scheduled for 6 weeks that you could have worked around? So it's given me a lot more of confidence in saying, this is what needs to be for my child, and this is what my child's rights are, and this is how it should be. I want to jump back to one thing that I think, sorry, Tim, if this is a little too much for next week, but anyhow, last year, a really fabulous thing happened. We got an email about this time, so about a week before school started, from several of the teachers saying, hey, I'm going to be in the building these times, these days, if your child would like to come by and meet me or say hi. One of those came from my daughter's English teacher, who she had actually also had her freshman year, so it was her sophomore year, so for 2 years in a row. And I thought she'd like to just say hi. She really enjoyed him. He was a very nice person. He really understood her. We're going to be in the building anyway for her touring of the building. We'll just do that. I did not realize how that meeting was going to go. It was fabulous. We walk in, and the first thing he does, he says, I'm so glad you're here. And I was like, oh, what a nice person. And then he said, I need help knowing how to rearrange my room so that it fits best for you. So I wanted to ask you, you know my teaching style, I do this and I do that, and I put things on the board and I put this kind of stuff on the other board and I walk around a lot. Where is the best place for you in the room, given that? And then also the stuff I put on the board, should I put that on this board or should I put that on that board? What would happen if I did this? And then I want to make sure that you have access to all the materials, because she uses an iPad that reads to her. And he's like, I think I can get PDFs that way. I've been working on that. What works for your iPad reader, what doesn't. And I was just blown away by here he was soliciting her input and I guess making her the expert. And it was really cool. And so it just taught me that, like, oh, even though I thought this was just going to be almost like a wave at him in the doorway, say, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you. He really wanted more from that interaction. He really needed that and was asking for our assistance in that. So it really made me think, when a teacher does offer to reach out, if you can manage it, it might be that they're really looking for more than just, hi, how are you? That they really are wanting your expertise on this. And so how helpful it can be to be able to provide that. The challenge is, the teacher contracts start like 2 weeks before the school year. So then they start contacting you because that's when they find out who their kids are. So, managing those scheduling issues can be really challenging. But if it's possible, it can be really beneficial to sort of help provide them the information they need. And this would be a great time. I mean, he knew her well enough to know what her strengths were, to know what her challenges were, but this would have been a great time for us to share some of that, to come into that room if he hadn't previously known her and shared what we knew about seating and things like that. So it's a lot of some of the communication-ish stuff for next week. Sorry, Tim, but I feel like it's, how can we work together? It's building that relationship. So partway through the school year, the material in that class became really overwhelming for her. We had a great relationship with him. He was noticing that. We were noticing that. We worked together to come up with a solution because we had more of a relationship. Okay. I'll stop now.
I just want to say, and if you don't mind, and Tim, I don't know what we're up against for time-wise, but I too want to springboard off of what you were saying, because Tim, you prefaced this whole beginning when you said the truth. Everybody's a little up, are we really ready mentally to go back to school, no matter what category you fall into, right? Is my interpretation of what you said, strictly my interpretation, right? But when you ask us the question of how do we get to IEPs, or how do we get these rock star teachers, like Sandy said, that just surprise the heck out of you and aren't seeing it as extra work or extra accommodations for your child, but just inclusion. You know, this English teacher clearly wanted Sandy's child to feel like a student in his class with no barriers and as probably independent as she could be, right? So my thought process goes back to what Sandy just said, that relationship thing, okay? Early on in elementary school, before I knew the special plain language and, you know, the booklet we've been touting, I think we should get a kickback from Facets, but you know, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, um, it was just ingrained in me from my parents that if people are meeting or people are doing things, and especially for you, it should revolve around food of some sort, right? So I made cookies for almost, and it was almost like they wanted that second meeting because they knew cookies were coming, right? And so it's kind of a funny thing that that's kind of what we were known for. I don't know, Tim knows me well enough that now that we're in the high school years, there's a little bit of an adult beverage threat, as it were, that becomes part of that conversation, like an after meeting, but I won't say it on here. But we enjoyed our time together early enough that we knew we had laid a base to have those difficult conversations later. So, you know, yep, I'm bringing the cookies, but you know what? I'm also bringing a pretty big ask that we need to have XYZ done this year. And I know you know it's the law, and I know you know it's a difficult thing for a small district to access, but we need to do it. You know, so here's an extra plate of cookies, right? But that relationship and that ask starting early helps so much. But also, if you aren't there anymore or didn't start there with the school district, I encourage you to, like Sandy said, she felt more empowered with the knowledge from this book. And I think Pearl would say that too, or whatever information you can get, or whatever family member needs to be part of that meeting to be able for you to say, we are a team here. And right now it's all the fluff because there's nothing going wrong, but none of us are going to act like there won't be a time when you don't have to call me out as a parent and say, you used to do XYZ and that really supported your child, and you're not doing it anymore, because that happens too. You know, mom fail. I get tired, I get what have you, and don't do the follow-up and don't do the thank you note after a meeting and so forth. I love it when they call it out on, because basically they're checking in to say, are you okay? Everything okay at home? You know, as when I call school and say, you know, we need XYZ, and they'll be like, yeah, we know, we just can't figure it out. Great, we are a team. Let me help you figure it out. Cookies, I'll bring the recipe next time.
I always do cookies too, or I do cupcakes or granola bars or fruit basket, just because some of them are watching their weight or whatever. But I love that stuff. I also wanted to kind of go back. Sandy, you said that you guys use like a lot of different programs besides like Google Classroom and stuff, right? And then I like Rosie, like you were talking with Google Classroom. I remember when that started with me, I didn't know how to navigate that stuff. So asking the team like, oh, well, we're going to have the kids do this. Great. I'm glad that you're teaching my son how to do it, but can you teach me too? So that way I can help with like homework and stuff, because I don't know how to use Canvas or, you know, Infinite Campus or Google Classroom or the Zooms and the things. And I'm just like, where's the time when it was all just written in paper? So having that kind of relationship built, right, from when you're the kids are younger and moving up, I have found I'm more comfortable telling them that there's stuff that I need help with too, to help my kids succeed, right? And it's never too late to build that relationship. And just because you had a team prior that maybe wasn't the greatest team, or an IEP meeting left like a sour taste in your mouth, and you're just like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Just like there's one apple that'll ruin the barrel, don't think that all meetings are going to be that way, and don't think that all your IEP teams are going to be that way. Always try again. And if it feels like there was a sour note, or if it feels like there was attitude, address it. We're not in school anymore. Just because our kids are doesn't mean that we are. We're all grown adults. Let's address it. Let's handle it. What can we do to move forward? Because at the end of the day, we're there for the kid. And if you don't like me and if I don't like you, that's fine, but we need to be civil, and we need to figure out what's best for my kid, because he's counting on you to help him succeed. And I feel like when you bring it that way, it helps build that relationship, right? Because then it kind of reminds them why we're all there. Why are we having to be here after work so late? Why am I having to come in, for my summer vacation of them being in school? Why do I have to also? And we have to remember it's for them. And so when we remind everybody of that, I have found it, at least personally for me, it has really benefited the relationships. So I would also suggest, if you don't know the programs, ask them to teach you too, because what is it going to hurt?
Pearl, I really like the idea of that, reminding everybody we are here today to mutually work together to benefit this child, to help this child's educational experience and all of that. I think about a lot of other types of meetings I've been at where I feel like that, maybe not necessarily education based, but other places for kids with disabilities and things where people forget that is the focus. And I think putting that back up front and center is a really good idea, because I think it really helps everybody say we are on the same team. We just might have different roles, we might have different perspectives, but we are on the team, that we are team, whatever that child's name is. So how do we work together as a team? And I know our best IEP meeting ever was when one of I think she was a vision specialist, said something like, so this is what this child needs. How can we collectively do that? She said, this is the piece I think I can do. And then immediately the PT, jumped in with like, well, I can work on this part with her. And then the OT was like, oh, and I can do this. And all of a sudden you could see people were excited because they felt like a team, and there was a thing that they collectively were working towards, and that they felt like there was a goal, and they felt like they could do things together. And that was when she was really young. She was in like first or second grade. So my daughter wasn't as involved now, but she is more now. And so it's neat to watch her say, and I think you could do this with me, or we could do this there, and to watch her participate. Sometimes her ideas are not quite appropriate or doable or realistic or whatever, but it's good to also hear what her thoughts are, because then we can figure out, oh, okay, so that's how she sees it. That's her perspective. How can we incorporate that? And how can we also motivate her to be involved? And then she also tends to be a reporter back, like, this person didn't do this like they were supposed to.
Yeah, if she knows what the expectations are, she's going to hold them to those expectations.
Yeah. Or use them to try to get under my skin when she knows that it bugs me when.
Yeah, isn't that just amazing? Is that for some reason kids with disability learn the manipulation gene as well as any other kids? It's just
Yes,
it's amazing. I mean, not every kid, but
Quite a few do.
Yeah. So they pick
I
up.
would say, one more thing. If parents are trying to figure out to like, how do we build that relationship? How do we get it to kind of flip around? One thing that I did, and I never knew why it didn't dawn on me before, but when I go to parent-teacher conferences, it's not really much of anything, because we usually have the IEP meeting around some of those meetings. So I'm just kind of going to be like, hey, how are you doing with my kid? Really checking in with their mental state and if they have gray hair for my kids. I go in and I'm like, hey, so this is my time slot. Do you need to go to the bathroom? because so many parents are just back to back to back to back. They don't have a chance to. So when I would go in to the ones that were, you know, the English teacher or the case manager or the OT or whoever, and it was my time, even though I just saw them 2 weeks ago, or if I'm going to see them in a week for an IEP meeting, I'm giving my time for them to be able to go to the bathroom. And they remember that, and it kind of has them be like appreciative. And
Yeah.
then you can build on that, right? And then you can kind of improve on it. So that was just kind of like my little tip from based on experience.
Thank you. We are closing out here. Rose, any final thoughts, or anybody else if Rose doesn't have any final thoughts to leave us with?
I'm sure I do, but we
I'm
need
sure,
to close
yeah.
out. So yeah, we'll go.
And with those closing thoughts, I want to thank you all so much. I'm not sure if everybody can rejoin us again next week for the conversation on communication, but I'm hoping to have some other families joining us as well. And so I'm looking forward to another really cool conversation about communication with schools. And if we all had capacity, this is the stuff I enjoy. I wish we could have conversations like this, because now I'm thinking like communication. Oh, one on advocacy. We could have one on how to advocate for your child, and we could talk about how, there's just so much that families learn from other families that I just so enjoy spending this time with you all. So thank you very much for that. I will get this posted as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for being here.
Take care, everyone. Goodbye.